Cell, the unit of life. Question 1. Which statement about Schleiden and Schwann's original cell theory is incorrect? A. All plants are composed of cells. B. All animals are composed of cells. Cells are the basic structural units of life. D. New cells arise from pre-existing cells. Answer. Statement about Schleiden and Schwann's original cell theory which is incorrect is that new cells arise from pre-existing cells. Schleiden, botanist, and Schwann, zoologist, formulated the cell theory in 1838-39 with two main postulates. 1. All organisms are composed of one or more cells. 2. Cells are the basic structural and functional units of life. The idea that new cells arise from pre-existing cells, postulate 3, was later added by Rudolf Virchow in 1855. Thus, option D is incorrect. Question 2. Why are viruses considered exceptions to the cell theory? A. They lack genetic material. B. They cannot replicate without a host. C. They lack a membrane-bound cellular structure. D. They are invisible under light microscopes. Answer is option C. Viruses are considered exceptions to the cell theory because they lack a membrane-bound cellular structure. Cell theory states that all living organisms are cellular, composed of cells with a membrane, cytoplasm, and genetic material. Viruses are acellular. They consist of a protein coat, capsid, enclosing genetic material, DNA/RNA, but lack a cellular membrane, cytoplasm, or organelles. This absence of a cellular structure makes them exceptions. Question 3. What is the primary role of cholesterol in the cell membrane of animal cells? A. To increase membrane permeability to water. B. To strengthen the membrane against mechanical stress. C. To regulate membrane fluidity across temperature ranges. D. To act as a receptor for cell signaling. Answer is option C. The primary role of cholesterol in the cell membrane is to regulate membrane fluidity across temperature ranges. Question 4. How do integral proteins differ from peripheral proteins in the cell membrane? A. Integral proteins are embedded in the lipid bilayer, while peripheral proteins are loosely attached to its surface. B. Integral proteins are involved in transport, while peripheral proteins are not. C. Peripheral proteins contain hydrophobic regions, while integral proteins do not. D. Integral proteins can move freely, while peripheral proteins are fixed. Answer is option A. Integral proteins are embedded in the lipid bilayer, while peripheral proteins are loosely attached to its surface. Integral proteins span the entire phospholipid bilayer transmembrane or are partially embedded, with hydrophobic regions interacting with the lipid tails. Peripheral proteins are attached to the membrane surface via electrostatic interactions or bound to integral proteins. They lack hydrophobic regions. Question 5. A researcher treats a cell with a chemical that dissolves phospholipids. What immediate effect would this have on the cell membrane? The membrane becomes more selectively permeable. The membrane loses its structure and integrity. C. Cholesterol molecules are expelled from the membrane. D. Peripheral proteins detach and float freely in the cytoplasm. Answer is option B. The membrane loses its structure and integrity. The phospholipid bilayer is the foundational structure of the cell membrane. Dissolving phospholipids would disrupt the bilayer, causing the membrane to lose its structural integrity and fail to separate the cell's internal environment from the external. Question 6. Prokaryotic cells lack A. Cell wall. B. Cytoplasm. C. True nucleus. D. Ribosomes. Answer is option C. True nucleus. Prokaryotes like bacteria have a nucleoid region, unstructured DNA, but lack a membrane-bound nucleus, unlike eukaryotes. Question 7. Which of the following is not a part of the endomembrane system? A. Rough endoplasmic reticulum. B. Golgi apparatus. C. Mitochondria. D. Plasma membrane. Answer is option C. Mitochondria. The endomembrane system includes the nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, vesicles, and plasma membrane. Mitochondria are not part of this system. Question 8. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum, SER, in animal cells is primarily involved in A. Protein synthesis. B. Steroid hormone synthesis. A. Lipid digestion. D. Starch storage. Answer is option B. Steroid hormone synthesis. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum lacks ribosomes and functions in lipid metabolism. Example, synthesizing steroid hormones like estrogen/testosterone. Detoxification and calcium regulation. Rough ER with ribosomes is linked to protein synthesis. Question 9. Reductionist biology is defined by which of the following approaches? A. Studying entire ecosystems to understand individual organisms. B. Using physicochemical methods to investigate molecular basis of physiological processes. C. Comparing cellular structures across different kingdoms. D. Focusing on evolutionary relationships between species. Answer is option B, using physicochemical methods to investigate molecular basis of physiological processes. Reductionist biology is a scientific approach that tries to understand living things by breaking them down into smaller, simpler parts and studying those parts in detail. Question 10. Which model describes the cell membrane as a dynamic fluid structure with proteins embedded in a lipid bilayer? A. Static lattice model. B. Fluid mosaic model. C. Gelsol model. D. Unit membrane hypothesis. Answer is option B, fluid mosaic model. The fluid mosaic model, proposed by Singer and Nicholson in 1972, is widely accepted. It states that the cell membrane consists of a phospholipid bilayer, fluid matrix, with various proteins embedded or attached, forming a mosaic. Question 11. Which of the following organelles is responsible for the synthesis of proteins that are secreted outside the cell? A. Lysosome. B. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum. C. Rough endoplasmic reticulum. D. Golgi apparatus. Answer is option C. Rough endoplasmic reticulum. The rough endoplasmic reticulum synthesizes proteins destined for secretion or insertion into the cell membrane. Ribosomes on the rough endoplasmic reticulum produce these proteins, which are then transported to the Golgi apparatus for modification and packaging. Why other options are incorrect? A. Lysosome functions as the cell's digestive unit, breaking down waste materials and cellular debris using hydrolytic enzymes, not involved in protein synthesis. B. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum lacks ribosomes and is primarily involved in lipid synthesis, detoxification, and storage of calcium ions. D. Golgi apparatus modifies, sorts, and packages proteins and lipids from the ER into vesicles for secretion or membrane insertion. Question 12. Who is credited with formulating the cell theory stating that all organisms are composed of cells, and cells are the basic structural and functional units of life? A. Robert Hooke. B. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. C. Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann. D. Rudolf Virchow. Answer is option C. Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann. The cell theory was proposed jointly by German scientists Matthias Schleiden, botanist, and Theodor Schwann, zoologist, in 1838 to 1839. Schleiden observed plant cells while Schwann studied animal cells, concluding that both plants and animals are composed of cells. Why other options are incorrect? A. Robert Hooke. He discovered cells in cork tissue in 1665 but only named them. He did not recognize them as living units. B. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He improved the microscope and observed live microorganisms, example bacteria, but did not formulate the cell theory. D. Rudolf Virchow. He later revised the theory with the postulate omnis cellula, e cellula. All cells arise from pre-existing cells but did not originate the core theory. Question 13. The cell theory was later modified to include which of the following? A. All cells have a nucleus. B. Cells arise from pre-existing cells. C. Multicellular organisms have specialized cells. D. Organelles are the basic units of life. Answer is option B. Cells arise from pre-existing cells. The original cell theory stated, 1. All organisms are cellular. 2. Cells are the basic units of life. Rudolf Virchow later modified it in 1855 with the postulate omnis cellula e cellula. Every cell arises from a pre-existing cell. Why other options are incorrect? A. Prokaryotic cells, example bacteria, lack a nucleus. C. Not part of the original or modified cell theory. It refers to cellular differentiation in multicellular organisms. D. Organelles are subcellular structures. Cells are basic units of life and not organelles. Question 14. Which of the following statements about the nucleoid region in prokaryotic cells is correct? A. It is enclosed by a nuclear membrane. B. It contains linear histone-bound DNA. C. It houses the cell's genetic material. D. It is absent in all prokaryotes. Answer is option C. It houses the cell's genetic material. The nucleoid region is a non-membrane-bound area in prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, where the circular double-stranded DNA is located. It is not enclosed by a membrane, unlike the eukaryotic nucleus, and lacks histones. Question 15. Which human cell does not contain mitochondria? A. Liver cell, hepatocyte. B. Muscle cell, myocyte. C. Mature red blood cell, erythrocyte. D. Nerve cell, neuron. Answer is option C. Mature red blood cell, erythrocyte. Mature red blood cells, RBCS, lose their mitochondria during development to maximize space for hemoglobin, which transports oxygen. This adaptation allows RBCS to carry more oxygen. Why other options are incorrect. A. Liver cell, hepatocyte. Liver cells are highly metabolic and contain many mitochondria for energy production. B. Muscle cell, myocyte. Muscle cells require large energy reserves. Mitochondria, often called powerhouses, are abundant here. D. Nerve cell, neuron. Nerve cells need mitochondria to support electrical signaling and maintain ion gradients.